It turns out the objective of Operation Coconut Tree is quite literal. Make it seem as though the Kamala Harris we've known for the last 10 years didn't exist. That this new and improved Kamala just fell out of a damn coconut tree and didn't fail as borders are, didn't state she wants to ban fracking, didn't lock up black men for low level drug offenses, wasn't rated more liberal than Bernie Sanders, didn't tweet out a bail fund for George Floyd rioters and looters, didn't spend the last 4 years covering Joe's cognitive decline. No, they want us to believe she just fell out of a damn coconut tree literally a week ago and gifted us with her presence, her flawless presence. The Democrat Party doesn't want to reckon with who Kamala really is, and they're hoping you'll forget the Kamala you've seen in action or missing in action for the last 4 years. But will it work? Joining me now is a Democrat who is likely hoping it will, former press secretary to Jill Biden, Michael LaRosa. All right, Michael, it's good to see you. It's been about a month, almost to the day, since you and I spoke. And the last time you and I spoke, it was right after that disastrous debate that knocked out your candidate. But that day, you told me convincingly that Joe was going to be the nominee, that there's just no way Joe wasn't going to be your guy. So what say you now?
You know, the power of Pelosi is what I have to say now. You know, something similar actually happened in 2016 with the Republican candidate, Donald Trump. 30 members of Congress, including the Speaker of the House, asked him to drop out of the race, to withdraw. Our speaker was just a little bit more skilled at trying to get the nominee off the ballot this time.
Yeah, what I would say so. I mean, it was a coup against your candidate. Those that
Well,
were, well, no,
well,
I mean,
no.
how was it not? I'll let you explain to me how it wasn't.
Okay, let me explain. So political parties, as you know, are not constitutionally endowed. They are literally clubs. They are clubs of people. You can join them, you can leave them. There are no constitutional rules about political parties. Political parties can do what they want. They have never been many democracies. And I don't know where this is coming from that they are. The whole idea of smoke-filled rooms comes from from political parties, because that's how they used to be decided. They're not meant to be democratic. They're meant to be transactional by nature. Their only purpose is to win elections.
Okay.
So if the leaders of a political party decide or think they can't win, the only option is to change direction. Now, it just so happened the leader of our party is the president. So that's why it was just a little bit more controversial this time.
Well, Michael, are you just saying that we should scrap primaries altogether then? Just throw out the entire primary process if it doesn't matter anyway, and the votes of 14 million people who voted for Joe just simply don't matter? Is that what you're saying?
Well, first of all, they voted for Joe and Kamala. It's Biden Harris. Second of all, actually, yes, I'm not saying we should scrap it, but many of the states did. And that's typically the case in a primary. A lot of states cancel their primaries because when an incumbent is running, there's no need for it, right? So 14 million, yeah, but usually there's a lot more. How many states primaries this year alone? Many.
Well, Michael, I'm not sure I agree with you on that point and perspective. I think that it's kind of shady and kind of crappy to swap your guy out 100 days before a general election when you're losing. I mean,
I think I lost you. You there?
Michael, do we have you? Do we have you, or did Pelosi
Yeah.
get to you? You're back.
I'm still here.
You're still there. All right. Well, I know I threw you a curveball with that question, so I don't blame you. My internet would go down too. But I have a lot of questions for you.
Totally fair.
So I have a lot of questions for you on the reinvention of Kamala Harris. So if you'll recall, Michael, the last time you and I spoke, I said, if Joe is not your guy, who would you want? And the first name you told me was Governor Gavin Newsom. You didn't mention Kamala. In fact, I don't think you were too excited about Kamala. So I have to ask you, as it stands now, are you a white dude for Kamala Harris? All right, well, we're waiting to get Michael back. So I'm going to play a little bit of Radical Kamala. For the folks out there who don't know her radical liberal agenda, let's take a listen to her plan as pronounced by Elizabeth Warren on amnesty.
Recognize, and I know that Kamala Harris knows this, this is a problem that ultimately has to be solved by Congress. We need the tools in order to have more resources at the border, to have more resources in the states and cities that are supporting migrants, and I believe we need to create a pathway to citizenship. All of that is a part of what we need to do for comprehensive immigration reform. Kamala Harris will work with Congress and get that done.
All right, we're waiting to get Michael back. We're going to have him call in because his internet connection failed on us a little bit. But while we're waiting to get Michael back, I just want to play for all of you, as I mentioned in my monologue here, that the Democrats are really trying to distance Kamala from her own record. They want you to believe that she's in fact a moderate, that all the things that she's done and said and was tasked with, in fact, are not the case. One of my favorite ones is that she was never the border czar, but we have tape of her boss, President Joe Biden, naming her really exactly that. Let's take a listen to this one. Democrats don't want you to see it.
I've asked her, the VP today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help. We're going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks stemming the migration to our southern border. It's not her full responsibility and job, but she's leading the effort.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and for having the confidence in me.
Michael, I think I've got you back. A lot to discuss
Sorry.
there. While we were waiting for you,
just...
while we were waiting for you, I played a couple of clips from my audience about radical Kamala Harris. I know that she wasn't your first choice. I think y'all were kind of stuck with her. You have to, deal with what you're dealt in life, and you guys were dealt Kamala for whatever reason. But I'm wondering, are you one of those white dudes for Kamala now, a week later, all in?
I am a big fan of the vice president, and I'm really happy that she's leading the ticket.
Okay. So you had a different tune after the debate, but I understand. Hey, listen, if my party had led a coup on our candidate and we were left with someone else, I might want to support that person too, just because, by default, you're kind of out of options.
What did I say?
Well, I asked you last time we had this discussion, if Joe were to drop out, I asked you who would be the first name on your list, and you said California Governor Gavin Newsom. Nowhere on that list that you gave me was Vice President Kamala Harris, but I get it. That's what you're dealt with, and you have to deal with it, and I completely understand it. So I want you
I think I was a little bit more careful than that, because I think I had you clarify the question and say if we were starting from scratch.
Oh, okay. So that still begs the question then. If you were able to start from scratch, Kamala would not be your first choice.
I think, I don't know, because things have changed since then. A lot has changed in a month. I can't believe how much money she has raised. I can't believe how much enthusiasm she has unleashed in the party. It's blown as shocked as I was at the debate, I've been even more shocked by her ability to unify and unite a party within 9 hours.
Yeah, well, you really had no choice. So Democrats always fall in line. I mean, I will give you that. And there is a lot of money that's being raised. I would ask you, though, I understand that your party is enthusiastic now because you don't have to cover for the cognitive decline of Joe Biden. Like yesterday when he went on his rambly rant about the shaving cream and stuff, y'all don't have to really answer for that anymore. So you really are unburdened by what has been, Michael. But I do have to ask you, when it comes to the polls and what they're showing us, do you think the enthusiasm that the Democrats feel within your party, do you think that that's actually translating to the polls? Because they really haven't changed much since you swapped out your candidate.
So I would have to disagree with you there. According to all the polls that I'm reading, they have changed. They have changed for the better for Democrats. If you look at, and I think Karl Rove on the Fox News channel said something similar, how Trump is no longer in a position of strength in this race. He is now subordinate to Harris in this race. She has closed the gap that Biden had. And really made this a margin of error race again. If you look at just the Fox News polls, she's tied in Michigan. And in another poll, she's, I think, tied or down by 1 in Michigan. In the same poll that Biden was down 8. Wisconsin up by 1, according to the Fox poll. Pennsylvania tied. Trump has led since September 23rd of September of last year. This has been incredible to see how she has made this a race again. I'm as shocked as most people, including Karl Rove. And look, she's going to have good weeks and bad weeks, but she has had an incredible 2 weeks that has been able to. I mean, these numbers are just. I was looking at them before we went on the air, and it's just incredible how she has managed to surpass him in some, but altogether, he's only ahead by 2 points in the Real Clear Politics head-to-head. And, you know, that's a margin of error race.
Yeah, no, it was always, in my opinion, going to be a margin of error race. I'm not going to discount that. I don't think that this is going to be some kind of a slam dunk for Donald Trump. In fact, I have cautioned Trump supporters over and over and over again, whether it was failing Joe or Kamala, that this wasn't going to be easy. It's not going to be. You guys also have an advantage because you switched your candidate at the last minute. The Trump-Vance ticket doesn't even know who they're running against at this point. So good on y'all for being strategic. I will always give you that. I mean, you guys sure know how to do it. And you know what? If Kamala fails, maybe switch somebody out again. You never know what's going to happen. But
I think we're on the verge of Donald Trump switching out his vice presidential nominee. If you look at some of the headlines and some of the coverage that he's getting, Trump can't be too pleased with his own selection. He should start relying on some professionals and not his son for such big decisions like that, because this guy has just been a Dan Quayle-esque drag on Trump, who had been doing everything right up until that point. I will give him credit. You guys have run an incredibly disciplined campaign. And Trump actually won that debate. It wasn't just that Biden lost it. Trump actually won. He was incredibly disciplined. He was, I thought he took the sort of his foot off the pedal in going after Biden. I thought he could have been a lot worse. But I will say the Vance pick, what has just been a disaster for him. And I had wrote a New York Times op-ed explaining why I thought Rubio would be the best strategic pick for Donald Trump, just objectively looking at sort of the data and coalition that he could put together with a Rubio kind of ticket. But this guy just hasn't been tested.
Okay. Well, listen.
Or vetted.
Listen, I'm not going to fully disagree with you. I've had my own criticisms of some of the things that he said in the past and how they're going to resurface and they are going to cause a problem that Donald Trump doesn't need. So I will give you that. Some of the comments he's made in the past are unhelpful. I'm hoping that he will further clarify some of his comments, maybe apologize for a couple of them. I would appreciate that. I think it would help the ticket. But I also want to ask you about this, because the Democrats, not only are you in lockstep for Kamala, but also it seems like you all are reading off the same sheet of music. And the new tagline, the new word of choice is that Republicans, Trump, Vance, MAGA people, conservatives, that we are weird. Let's take a listen to this montage.
Some of what he and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
These guys are just weird. That's who they are.
As weird and creepy as JD Vance.
Super weird idea from JD Vance.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's quite weird. They're just plain weird.
Just plain weird.
Just plain weird.
That stuff is weird. They come across weird, and then they start being weird. Yeah, they're weird.
Being a really weird.
He's such a weirdo.
Donald Trump and his weirdo running mate, they're weird. Deeply and profoundly weird.
They are weird.
These Republicans just being weird, it's just weird. It's really weird.
Republican weirdness goes even deeper.
He said a lot of things that are weird, a weird style that he brings, weird policies. Let's start with the weird thing, because it is a thing.
Just plain weird.
What was weird was talking about Diet Mountain Dew. Who drinks Diet Mountain Dew?
You ever seen the guy laugh? That seems very weird to me, that an adult can go through 6.5 years of being in the public eye. If he has laughed, it's at someone, not with someone. That is weird behavior.
Weird and cultish.
Weird. Okay. So I want you to take JD Vance out of it and just tell me if y'all are given talking points and if the word weird is circled and in bold for all the Democrat pundits out there.
Well, first of all, I'm probably on this show because, I don't do talking points. And I got a lot of rough treatment for not following the messaging and the DNC talking points and regurgitating all that crap. I try to be like, I love politics, Tommy, like I'm passionate about it. I like understanding how both sides tick. So I don't do the talking points thing. If they were, I wasn't on the list for the weird thing, but I don't think it's a bad sort of description of like the obsession with women's bodies and their healthcare and kind of regulating bodies, or the cat stuff with Vance or the Mountain Dew thing. I mean, yeah, he says, and Donald Trump and talking about sharks all the time. I mean, look, sure, it's weird, but I think you probably agree with some of it too.
There's a lot of weird things that are said. And honestly, if Democrats, if their new go-to thing is that Republicans are just weird and not fascists or Nazis or Hitler, I mean, I think we'll take weird. That's fine with me. Like, I don't mind if we are a little weird.
I don't think it's a communication game changer. I think it's fine. I don't have any like strategic sort of like opinions about it.
Okay. Well, it's obvious that word was chosen and that it's been echoed. I mean, it was echoed. I played a minute of a clip that's actually much longer in the last several days of a lot of these Democrat pundits and operatives using that word very distinctly, the word weird. So I'm sure it went out somewhere. Maybe you didn't get the memo, but it's definitely out there. I think you're probably right. I think people see some saliency to it, or maybe, they see some popular appeal to it, and probably right. I think it's probably going to the top of like TV talking points for if you're putting your boss on TV, stick to this. Yeah. Well, we'll see if it works or not. I'm not so sure. So here's my actual question for you, though, when it comes to Kamala, and I know you're going to be straight with me on this. There seems to be a coordinated effort to distance Kamala from some of her more radical positions. And a couple of those, and I had a clip that I played, I believe, when we were trying to get to you, but this one is important to me, the fracking one. So I want to play the clip of Kamala 2019 talking about how she feels about fracking. Let's take a listen.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities. Yeah, so thank you.
Okay, so she just change her position, or what's going on here?
Changed it.
Okay, so now she supports fracking.
Yep, exactly. And you know what? It's actually, to me, a reflection of some of her political skill. Republicans didn't go and force her to do it. Republicans didn't dig up the footage. She proactively came out and said, I'm reversing my position. That's smart. She basically took it off the table, or she got ahead of it, which is even better.
Okay, so here's my question then, Mike. Then here's my question then, because she's also been for many years married to the whole climate cultist belief system. She was there on CNN doing an entire town hall about the climate crisis. So does she no longer believe that fracking will lead to a climate apocalypse?
Well, and I think you would agree, as a Republican who I'm sure believes in states' rights, that governing states or representing states are not all equal. California certainly isn't equal to Oklahoma when it comes to the environmental regulatory landscape. So she was representing her state very well, but skillfully, she recognizes over time, she is now representing the entire country. And that is reflected sort of in Biden's record. We did outpace Trump our first 2 years of granting permits on federal lands for oil drilling. We did auction off 1.7 million miles of leases in the Gulf of Mexico. And in 2023, we broke Trump's record for the amount of oil production that we've ever produced. So we're doing incredibly well with energy independence and oil production. In crude oil, we've never produced more. So as long as she continues to evolve in the sort of right way, I'm fine with it. I mean, as you know, Trump was a Democrat. He changed his party. Trump changed his position on abortion, I think 3 times. So these things, They're good for, the day-to-day combat and sucking up oxygen on cable news or podcasts. We can talk about a record. Ultimately, fracking is not going to decide the election.
Well, it's going to decide a lot for people that work in those states, particularly Pennsylvania being a big one. She's going to have to contend with that. And if she did, in fact, change her position and she no longer thinks that fracking is a threat to the environment and to the climate crisis, then she needs to explain that. And she needs to apologize for attributing fracking and fracking jobs to a climate apocalypse. So I hope that she does that. The last thing I want to talk to you about is what came up yesterday with the Supreme Court reforms. Are you for it? Do you stand behind Biden-Harris in radically reforming the Supreme Court?
Honestly, no, I'm not for it. I don't think there's been a super compelling reason for changing the system just because you don't like some of the results the court is dishing out. I mean, to me, the answer is just start winning elections.
Okay. So you would push back against that. And do you think that Kamala Harris, as your candidate, needs to push back? Because she's not. She's endorsed that plan.
Well, my calculus is a little bit different than hers. I mean, she's running for president. She is the number 2 to the guy who's still number 1. I'm just talking about me personally. Like, I don't like I cringe when people try to change the rules just because they don't like the outcome of an election. So, after 2000, Democrats wanted to talk about changing the Electoral College. I think we did in 2016 too, but that's not the answer. Or with gerrymandering, same thing. Just go win elections. Just be better. That's what I have to say. I mean, I was an athlete. It's just I can't change the rules every time I lose. Okay. So, look, if Democrats were as adept at using power the way Mitch McConnell used it against Obama in 2016, who knows? Maybe we could have had an additional Supreme Court justice on the court. If Ruth Bader Ginsburg would have retired, probably under Obama, we'd have 2 additional Supreme Court justices on our side. So, I mean, I just think this is all rewriting history a little bit. Now, I will also be honest with you. I'm not a constitutional law scholar. I mean, I presume the president, who I used to think of as an institutionalist, and I think his heart is more with the institutions in terms of like sort of their longevity and making sure that they, amend it but not totally changed.
Yeah. Well, he might have been pushed into it, kind of like he was pushed out of the candidacy. But you never know what's going on over there, Michael.
It sounds like it was something that was like hatched or cooked up like while he was still running as a way to sort of, I don't know, energize young people, maybe.
Okay. Well, I hope it works for the big guy. I hope that he gets some legacy points for it. I mean, shoot, it's all he has left. As Donald Trump said last night with Laura Ingraham, they just toss him to the curb and he's just been sitting there on the sidelines looking for something to do, Michael. So I guess this is his thing. I always appreciate you being honest, especially as a white dude for Kamala. I appreciate your voice and I hope to have you back.
Yeah, anytime. Sorry about the tech issues again.
All good. I appreciate you. All right, folks. Not only is Kamala a radical California liberal, apparently she's also unbearable to work for. Telling? It's time for final thoughts. So here's the deal. Democrats have to act like they love Kamala now, even though they didn't in 2019 and they haven't for the last 4 years. But they're stuck with her now, so naturally they're going to try to make lemonade out of their lemon. What I find interesting is how her staffers felt and likely still feel about her. We know Gen Z wants Kamala to be brat now, but maybe that's literal. Maybe she's an actual brat. Don't take my word for it. Take her former staffer, Simone Sanders.
My experience had been, it was new for me when I worked for her because I had never worked for a high-profile woman before. I had only ever worked for men. And there was one day at work where I was like, ma'am, you might be the last woman I work for because this is a
there's a story there.
It's a lot. This a lot that we got to deal with over in here.
There's a lot. Damn, Simone, we appreciate the honesty. And the numbers don't lie either. Thanks to analysis by our friends at Open the Books, we know during her first 3 years as vice president, Kamala Harris had a nearly 92% staff turnover rate. Shouldn't be shocking. Back in October of 2023, before the media was coddling her, The Atlantic reported that in her first year and a half as vice president, Harris saw the departure of her chief of staff, communications director, domestic policy advisor, national security advisor, and other aides. But that was the tip of the iceberg. In the last year alone, 24 people left their jobs with Kamala Harris. Is it because she's a badass girl boss, or is it because she's insufferable and mean? Another ex-staffer went even further, saying that working for Kamala was soul-destroying and likening her to a workplace bully. Yeah, there's a lot of there. While researching for his Harris biography, Amateur Hour, author Charlie Spearing recounted horror stories told to him by former staffers, and some of these date back to the 2010s when Harris was California AG. A professor at Cal State Sacramento, Barbara O'Connor, claims students who interned for Kamala frequently came back crying and complaining they weren't valued. But that trend continued when Kamala was a senator. Her office had the 9th highest turnover rate of the 114 other senators who served at the same time. This trend is long-standing and not indicative of a few disgruntled or jaded staffers. This is a pattern for Kamala, and apparently so too is her lack of intellectual curiosity and aversion to actually doing the work. Staffers who worked for Kamala in her current role as VP told the Washington Post in 2021 that Kamala had an unwillingness to prepare and a propensity to blame her staffers when she underperformed. So she's mean. She blames others for her failures, and her policies are radical and craptastic. Is that who you want as your first female president? Well, not me. But what bothers me most about Kamala Harris, besides her radical California liberal policies, is how she squandered the last 3.5 years as vice president. She was given a golden opportunity to shine as the first female vice president, and she essentially has done nothing. I would give her more credit if she accomplished anything of note, even if it was something I disagreed with, but she's done nothing. Generations of women from both political parties and all races have fought hard to blaze that path, and Kamala took it and she pissed it away, spending her time going to yarn shops and yucking it up with drag queens and celebrities. What a waste of time. Those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow live at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching Tomi Lahren is Fearless. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you'll never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.